Get to say things.
I understand. But Senator Casey's requested a second round. I know he'll be back as soon as he can. So to begin, again, thank you for all the witnesses being here today. We've heard concerns about moving to E15. We've heard concerns about new mandates on ultra-low sulfur diesel, heard about new emission standards for industrial plants. Since the goal, clearly, this hearing for Chairman Casey, Senator Toomey, and others is to restore refining capacity in the Northeast, could Mr. Greco and Mr. O'Malley, and any for that matter, could you explain what major new regulations confront refineries in particular and the impact on the likelihood of restarting or growing capacity in the Northeast?
Well, certainly. Right now we're confronting a variety of new regulations. We're obviously complying with those that are on the books. Those are the law. But EPA is moving forward very aggressively in a number of areas. We're looking at fuel changes in Tier 3, which could include sulfur and RVP changes. We're looking at stationary source controls on CO2 emissions as well as on criteria pollutants, NOx, SOx, those types of pollutants. So we're looking at that whole range of controls on emissions. These are all at the point where EPA is moving forward. We have not seen proposals yet on these. We have not seen a justification for these rules yet. So our basic message to EPA is help us understand, explain what the need is for these, justify the need before you go ahead with a proposal. The typical process is to release the justification at the same time you release the proposal, and then they get finalized together. That doesn't strike us as a good approach to policy making.
In the case in the Gulf Coast where EPA technology mandates reduced NOx and ozone but drove up CO2, is there a collaborative way where industry can work with our regulators to achieve those clean air goals but do it in a way that doesn't shut down refineries, doesn't drive up the price of energy?
Well, we try to work collaboratively with the government. We're the experts. We think we know how to run our facilities and how best to implement requirements cost effectively. The challenge is, as Mr. O'Malley mentioned, is EPA has taken a very different view of things. I think with the E15 waiver is a very good case in point. You've got the auto industry, you've got the oil industry, you've got marketers, you've got small engine manufacturers. You pretty much have most everyone except the ethanol manufacturers saying this is premature and this is a bad idea. But EPA went forward and approved this partial waivers, even while ongoing research was being conducted by the oil industry and the auto industry. And in fact, we're looking at finalizing a report next week, which will have more information come Tuesday about work that the auto industry and the oil industry has done looking at E15 compatibility. And it just underscores our concerns that this was a hasty judgment and one that was politically driven.
If the EPA is successful in E15, more ethanol blending, what's the impact on refineries?
Well, certainly we're confronted with this huge ethanol mandate, biofuels mandate that we have to meet. EPA is portraying this as maybe helping you avoid this blend wall when we would saturate the market. At best, assuming E15 was as good as EPA says it is, and assuming it could be used in all the vehicles EPA says it can be used in, it might extend the blend wall a year or two. But we're talking about a program that we have another decade or more that we have to blend ethanol in, and it's not a solution. The true solution in our mind is right-sizing the program. You need to adjust the ethanol mandate, the biofuels mandate, to what the vehicle fleet can safely use. And we're very close to exceeding that where we are right now.
Thank you. Mr. O'Malley or any of the witnesses want to comment?
I would comment that the only reason for E15 is to drive up the use of ethanol, to take more corn out of the food cycle and put it into the fuel cycle. There is no justification for E15. It's a program that I don't know what price is going to be paid for it, but again, not holding back, it's nuts.
Sure. Dr. Moss, in your testimony, if I understood it, you suggest there may be a future potential for higher gas prices on the East Coast based on increased market concentration due to, obviously, these refinery closures. Can you elaborate exactly how you foresee that occurring and if a refinery raises price of gasoline above cost, what happens? How do other refiners react?
Well, that is essentially the thrust of my testimony. Economists and antitrust enforcers tend to worry about industries that become highly concentrated because obviously with fewer suppliers, those industries or markets are more conducive potentially to the exercise of market power because firms can indeed influence the market price because they control a good portion of the market, or firms can band together.
Can I ask you a trend question?
Sure.
I get the impression from the testimony that you foresee more integration in the industry, but I've noticed a number of companies are actually breaking up upstream and downstream, in part, I believe, because refining is a very tough, low margin, tough business to survive in. So isn't the trend going the opposite direction?
From what I read and understand, yes, there has been a sort of a de-integration from a vertical perspective in the industry. So, and I mentioned that might be a mitigating factor. If the concern is that fully integrated firms will use their market position to leverage market power into another level of the industry. If there's de-integration, then that may become less of a concern. However, the refining market in the Northeast, as I noted, is very highly concentrated with just 2 firms, after all of these closures accounting for almost 90% of capacity. I think that fact pattern leaves competitive concerns, even vertical concerns, squarely on the table. And certainly with a high concentration, as we see in refining, with just, again, the 2 firms controlling most of the output, we would potentially still worry about just restricting output to raise prices as well.
Thank you, Dr. Moss. Mr. Duffy?